inspiring session with Jack. Can you guys hear me? Brilliant. How to make your business carbon literate. We have Jack here, Jack Rhodes, who is basically joining us today as from the Climate Literacy Project. Jack began volunteering for the Carbon Literacy Project in August 2020 while studying his master's or completing his master's in environmental governance at the University of Manchester and joining the sector's toolkit team as a museums coordinator a year later. Since then, Jack's work has been included in overseeing the development of a new carbon literacy toolkit for the museum sector with partner organization Museum Development Northwest as part of the Root and Branches project. He also started his career in the third sector, but decided to go back to school and has a keen interest in environment. And he wanted to go back to university and explore that more. And he has this interest between culture, social justice, and environmental issues. So looking forward to having Jack today to walk us through the Climate Literacy Project and how to make your business carbon literate. Thank you, Jack.
No problem at all. Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Rhodes-Worden. I am the Museums Coordinator at the Carbon Literacy Project, as pre-mentioned. And today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to make your business carbon literate. And I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly. So do let me know if you'd like to receive a copy after this session, and I'll be happy to send them over. You can use my email address, which I've put on screen, and it's also at the end of the presentation as well. So what is carbon literacy? Carbon literacy is an environmental accreditation that an individual can achieve by attending a carbon literacy course. And so when someone attends a carbon literacy course, they will hopefully come away from it being carbon literate. And this means that they'd have an awareness of the carbon costs and impacts of everyday activities and the ability and motivation to reduce these emissions on an individual, community and organizational basis. And to break that down a little bit, a carbon literate citizen will understand how their own actions and the actions of humanity at large are impacting the planet. But it's not just about the scientific knowledge. Someone who's carbon literate will also have the skills and the desire to actually go out and do something about all these impacts. And that's in all of the spaces that they exist in. So in their personal lives and their work lives, with their communities. And so after someone has been on a carbon literacy course, they can apply to become a carbon literate citizen and receive a carbon literacy certificate, which you can see on the screen on the right there. And this is a nationally and increasingly internationally recognized accreditation, which demonstrates that you have successfully completed a day's worth of climate change training. So this concept of carbon literacy stems from the City of Manchester's 2009 Climate Action Plan, which aims to create a low carbon culture in the city. And there was a kind of acknowledgement essentially that one of the key barriers to climate action in the city was knowledge. So people not being on the same page about the causes of climate change and just across the community within the city. And from here, the concept of carbon literacy was formed and a working group was established to outline something called the Carbon Literacy Standard, which is the framework that underpins all the work that we do at the Carbon Literacy Project today still. And after this standard was written, the Carbon Literacy Project was established as a charity, and we continue to oversee the dissemination of this concept. And so now carbon literacy courses are being delivered in a variety of sectors across the UK and all over the world as well. And so to be clear, the Carbon Literacy Project does not actually deliver any training. We're not a training provider. We can better be understood as an accreditation body and a provider of the framework. So how can an organization get involved if we don't provide the training? So usually what will happen is an organization will develop their own carbon literacy course. And this course will be tailored to a specific organization's audience. And so this might be their staff. For some organizations, it's stakeholders and trustees. Sometimes it's community members. And it will be sector specific as well, and maybe even geographically specific. And the idea behind this is that carbon literacy courses and courses that teach about climate change shouldn't be generic. And we really encourage that they are as relevant as possible to the audience that is receiving the training so that it has the greatest impact on the people that are receiving the training, and that the content actually, entails some advice and knowledge that will actually help them go out into their specific lives and make a difference. There are a few courses that we've created at the Carbon Literacy Project, which can be accessed if you are from one of the relevant specific audiences. So we have courses for museums, the NHS, councils, social housing. And so if you were from any of those organizations, you'd be perfectly eligible to go to a website and have a look at our toolkits page, which contains all of the information about those courses. But most of the time, an organization will that wants to engage with carbon literacy will develop their own course. And that can then be embedded as part of their internal training and as part of their sustainability program as well. We do have resources that can help you with this. You don't actually have to start completely from scratch. We have things like slide packs and resource lists that can be incorporated into your course. And once the course has been developed, it'll be sent to us for accreditation. And after we've accredited it as a carbon literacy course, it can start being used to deliver carbon literacy training. And after each training, every learner will complete something called an evidence form, which is sent to us at the project. And we then assess this evidence. And if the criteria is met, then a carbon literacy certificate is awarded. And so that's the carbon literacy process. I mentioned previously the carbon literacy standard, which is the 4-part framework that underpins all of the work that we do. And I think it's probably worth me breaking down a little bit what that actually entails, because if you're going to possibly engage with us at the Carbon Literacy Project and you're considering writing your own course, then it's probably worth understanding the standard, because this is the standard that the course that you write would have to meet. And so the first element of the standard is knowledge. All carbon literacy courses must include the science of climate change, so why it's happening and how we know that humans are causing it. It also needs to include the impacts of climate change internationally, nationally, locally, and also cover what some of the solutions might be as well. And that's generally, but also within the sector that it's being delivered into as well. So a broad range of solutions, ideas should be covered. But while there's like a specific set of information that does need to be covered, it's also a very flexible framework, and there's loads of room for someone to include other information that you think is relevant to you in your course, to your audience. So we've had courses that include biodiversity, climate justice, things like degrowth, well-being, and none of these things are included in the carbon literacy standard, but they can be included in a carbon literacy course. So there's a lot of room for creativity within your process as well. The next element of the carbon literacy framework is the learning method. And so one of the key points here is that all carbon literacy courses are 1 day's worth of learning, which doesn't mean that it has to be delivered in 1 day, but it is all carbon literacy courses are between 7 to 8 hours long. And this can be divided across a number of different sessions, perhaps 4 sessions or 2 sessions, but they all have the same length in total. And this is because we feel like this is probably around the minimum amount of time that someone can have carbon literacy or climate change education training and come away feeling empowered and more knowledgeable and more able to make a difference. And the next key sort of element of the learning method point is peer-to-peer delivery. And so generally we encourage that organizations roll out carbon literacy internally, having staff members train each other rather than using external facilitators. And one of the main reasons behind this is that our colleagues and our peers understand the specific challenges and issues that our organizations or sectors face. And we also trust our peers and our community. And so we find that the training is more effective in this way. It leads to more effective communication and planning and discussion, and for things to come out of it that are actually incorporated into an organization's plans and future climate action. And also we encourage course writers to focus on positivity. So the idea of what can be done and not what can't be done, leaving people feeling empowered at the end of their carbon literacy training and not disempowered. There's a few values that are key to carbon literacy that we really encourage to be sort of embedded within any carbon literacy course that we accredit. The first of these is the idea that climate action can and should help us to create a better world. And this is mainly because, climate action sees us really trying to reconfigure some key elements of our society. And we think that fairness should and can be embedded within this process. And we also think that behavior change, individual behavior change, is really important. And that's kind of our core remit. The Committee for Climate Change stated earlier this year that almost 60% of the emissions reductions that need to occur to help the UK meet its 2035 net zero target would include some degree of individual behavior change. And so carbon literacy can really lay the groundwork to, getting people on board with these behavior changes that are going to have to take place if we're going to meet targets. And at the same time, we know that there's massive value in working together to achieve change. So that's another key carbon literacy value as well. And finally, action. So this is what sets carbon literacy apart from other environmental accreditations. So at the end of every carbon literacy course, every learner will create 2 actions that will reduce their carbon footprint, sorry. One individual action and one group action that they would do with a colleague or perhaps a network or a team or another group that they're a part of. And these actions are what learners include on the evidence form that we look at the project. And what we're looking for at the Carbon Literacy Project is to see that someone has really understood the training, they've understood how their actions can make a difference. They have developed this literacy skill around carbon, this ability to see, how their different actions can make an impact. And we also hope that these actions are ultimately undertaken by the learner after they've pledged them, and that can help to create, organizational culture shifts and, culture shifts within communities as well. And so the construction company Jacobs UK, who we work with, has estimated that there are at least 5 to 15% emission savings per person after having taken a carbon literacy course, which is the start in the bottom right of the graphic here. And we ourselves have also extrapolated from the evidence forms that we've received that 160,000 tonnes of emissions have been saved due to the almost 44,000 citizens that have been certified carbon literate and the 88,000 carbon reducing actions that they have pledged. And so you can really see that there's a massive impact of the carbon literacy courses that have been delivered. There are currently around 418 different courses being delivered across a massive variety of sectors. And this impact is only going to grow. We've entered into a couple of key partnerships recently. So for example, the UK's Department of Education has recently announced that every school, college, nursery and university in the country will have a carbon literate sustainability lead from 2023. And we're also currently working on a project with the NHS as well, which will allow carbon literacy to become available to all 1 million plus NHS staff members. So in general, it's a really great time to get involved with us. There's a lot of great work going on and there's a lot of traction and support and buzz around this concept. So how can an organization begin to think about rolling out carbon literacy? We often suggest something called the cascade model, which is especially useful for bigger organizations. And what we'll often suggest is that a few people within an organization become carbon literate, that they then attend an open course, and then these people become the initial course writers for a carbon literacy course, meaning that they can share the responsibility of course writing amongst each other. It doesn't just fall on one person's shoulders. And these trainers can then begin to roll out the training to their own colleagues. Once they are also carbon literate, they too can become trainers and continue to share that responsibility. And in that way, carbon literacy can cascade out through a organization. So a few things, why engage with carbon literacy? There's loads of reasons, but a few key things come to mind when I think about this. So firstly, the fact that carbon literacy can help to ensure that everyone on a team or within an organization has the same level of climate change knowledge and carbon emissions knowledge. And this can really help to ensure that everyone is on board, and it makes meeting any of your sustainability targets much easier. And once you've got everyone on board, you can begin to address some of the big issues that your organization might be facing or the sector might be facing. And that might be waste, it could be energy usage, it could be procurement, But either way, you begin to discuss these solutions more effectively when there's a really consistent level of knowledge across the whole organization. Of course, money is a very big factor, and often carbon emissions are coupled with energy usage or resource usage. And so when you really start to work on those things, financial savings come along as well. And so, carbon literacy can help reduce your emissions, and therefore this can lead to financial savings. And carbon literacy is, as peer delivered model, it's actually quite cheap, and therefore it's quite a relatively cheap way of getting to this point of having everyone with the same level of knowledge. And it's also very empowering for staff members. It provides staff with an opportunity to make decisions about their roles, about reducing emissions. It can give people more confidence to speak up about climate change, and this can be really empowering, especially with something as sort of anxiety-inducing as climate change can be. It's also, at the external level, something that demonstrates to your stakeholders and your shareholders or customers that you are committed to reducing emissions. And this is something that obviously a lot more organizations are being asked to prove. So it's really good in that way as well. It's also something that's fun and something that is good for well-being. It's a great opportunity for staff to engage and connect with each other and think of solutions to problems together. And for some, it's an opportunity to become trainers and to express interest in the environment and sustainability as well. And we get a lot of people doing carbon literacy, becoming trainers, who are, don't have anything to do with sustainability within their role, but they end up having this as part of their role. And that's really, really nice to see.
Jack,
yes.
We have a couple of minutes and I'd love to get some Q&As in before
okay.
just on the chat. So maybe we can take this in the Q&A part.
Okay, sure. If you just let me get to the bit where I say what we should do next, is that all right? And then I'll just wrap up. Is that okay?
Alrighty.
Yeah, grand. Fab. Cool. Okay, so next steps, if you'd like to see, carbon literacy taking place in your organization, I would say get in touch and arrange an introductory chat. I've given you my email and I'll give it you again in the next slide. But also the email address is there on screen, info@carbonliteracy.com. And usually what will happen is we'll have a chat about how this might work for your organization, and then we'll also probably suggest that you attend an open carbon literacy course so that you can find out about how carbon literacy works and see it in action. And you can also see what might be missing from a carbon literacy course that you might run. And then ultimately, once we've had a chat and talked about this and you've become carbon literacy yourself, it's absolutely time for you to start thinking about your own course and your own audience and your own organization and the impacts that you might be able to have. And that's certainly something that we can chat about as well. Fab. Okay, grand. That'll do, and I will happily take some questions now if anyone has any.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jack. So we have three questions here. One from Elmer from the Digital Catapult, another one from Ananya, who's actually at the Kingston Council, and one last one, if we have time, from Stephanie. So the first one is about Elmer's question. As an organization aiming to mature our own thinking and working with organizations, the sectors you've mentioned, like social housing, what's the best way to think about having such courses as meaningful interventions in our projects and for our clients and partners?
What kind of organization is this questioner from?
Digital Catapult. It's
Digital
one of the
Catapult.
catapults.
And they work with social housing, did you say?
Yeah, they will be working with their partners in social housing.
And the question is, how can they have courses that are,
meaningful interventions in their projects and with their clients and partners?
I guess the question then is about, if you're working with lots of different people and this carbon literacy is something that you are interested in, and you're potentially working with a number of different, groups or organizations with maybe different models, and you're thinking about how you could potentially engage all those different people, what I would potentially suggest is, working on a carbon literacy course that you can adapt to fit those audiences. It's something that we can definitely talk about as an organization with any clients that come to us and want to have this approach. But if you create a base of a carbon literacy course that has areas that can have relevant information plugged in, obviously social housing is very different from a private sector organization or a cultural organization. But if there are elements somewhere within the course where you can take that content out and plug the other content in, we do work with training providers that do that, and they work with across a number of different clients. And it's because they have these sort of base courses that they can adapt. So not everything has to happen from scratch completely every time that you're approaching or addressing a different sector or a different organization.
Thanks, Jack. Maybe you and Elmer can swap email details and carry on that particular one, because another one is from Ananya. I'll just have 1 minute on that. Ananya is asking, as working for council, and a lot of my work is based around transitioning into a green economy, be happy to learn more about this initiative and explore ways to incorporate the learnings in our local business community. Any pointers on that?
I would just say get in touch with us, and we would happily, and there's not a lot I can, because we work with such a breadth of organizations, what we often find is that you are the people, not necessarily you, Priya, but a lot of the people that we are watching us, they are the people that are, have that insight, that knowledge that they can embed in their courses. And what we do is we sort of help them unlock that and put that in a material that they can use. And so a lot of the knowledge already exists, and it's a way of carbon literacy is a way of honing that down into a piece of material that becomes really relevant, and really concentrating things down into a set of content that becomes manageable and understandable to a variety of audiences. And that's, so I would say, yeah, get in touch and we can chat about how you can potentially put that into your business model and at your council.
Thanks, Jack. That's brilliant. And Ananya and Elmer, do reach out to Jack and Stephanie as well. Sorry, we couldn't cover your question, but the whole list of all these transcripts are going to be available, and you can have a look at it online after the event is over. So we'll go to the next one. Cheers, everyone. See you in the next one.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.